Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about trauma-informed mindfulness. And so to start, I'll share a little bit something that I've experienced with individuals that are practicing mindfulness. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that sometimes grounding in the present can be really, really helpful because if we're experiencing anxiety, we might be worried about something that's going to happen around the corner or worried about something that's going to happen even in the week ahead. And then we also might be in a spot where we're really feeling really sad about something that's happened previously. And so, kind of having that moment of being in the center can be helpful for a lot of people. However, something that I've encountered is clients who've shared, you know, I like that, but what if it's the moment, the in the moment that is actually causing my activation? What if it's something like, getting on the bus that's super crowded, or waiting in line at a grocery store or a staff meeting where someone or something has come up that's really activating? And in those instances, being in the present might be maybe very unhelpful. And so, one of the things that we could experience that's a little bit of a different approach is what we would call trauma informed mindfulness. And in trauma informed mindfulness, the objective isn't so much about being in the present, though that's a part of it. The objective is a little bit more about providing your brain with a distraction. And so when we can provide our brains with that distraction, it kind of gives us a moment to recoup and repair. And so rather than staying in the present, which could be the source of your distress, we look at a distraction. And so one of the activities I like to do that speaks to this is something called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you may have heard of it before, done it before, because it's a favored among therapists. But we'll go ahead and give it a try today and see what we think. So in this activity, one thing I always like to do is start off with one hand on the stomach and one hand on the chest and do some real intentional breathing into the belly. And when we do that, we can release some neurotransmitters such as oxytocin and dopamine that can give us a little bit of a emotional boost. The other thing too is if you have your hand on your chest, right by your heart, many of us find that to be really comforting. And so that might be helpful in itself. And so to prime, we'll just go ahead and do 20 seconds of deep belly breathing starting now. All right. And so something that's kind of cool about this activity that we're about to do is that oftentimes we're instructed in mindfulness to be sitting in a, kind of active but relaxed posture and having our hands on our lap and just really kind of centering in this relaxed state. And that is helpful with this activity, but as mentioned, sometimes we're in the moment of things. And if I'm standing in a bus or I'm in a staff meeting where I'm needing to be a little bit more active, then that isn't really realistic. So we can do that kind of in this moment, but please know that you don't need to do that for this activity. So what we're going to go ahead and start off with is we're going to go find that relaxed posture. Again, not necessary, but it can be helpful. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify 5 things in our environment that we can see. And rather than staring at it in kind of a glaring way, just having your eyes rest on it, maybe even be a little out of focus, And just notice the object's color. Notice if it's shiny, not shiny. Notice if there's a couple of different colors in the object. Notice how they line up against one another. So again, 5 different objects in your environment. And if you are still enjoying that part of the exercise, you can pause the video and continue on with observing the objects. And sometimes people find that actually I really just like that. That's helpful. I don't need anything else. And so in that case you're done. But otherwise, I'd invite us to kind of move through this journey into the next 4 things that we'll be drawing attention to. And so this is going to ask us to identify 4 things that we can feel. I'll provide some examples. So right now my forearms are kind of resting on these armrests in this chair, and so I can feel that, kind of this plasticky feel. So that's something that I can feel. And I can also feel the weight of this shirt and feel how the fabric touches my skin. If your hands are in your lap, you can feel either denim, polyester, whatever kind of fabric is your choice for today. And once you've identified those 4 things you can touch and feel, we'll move on and consider 3 things that we can hear. Sometimes this is kind of where it starts to get a little bit more challenging, but that's a part of this exercise, is to lean into subtleties. And so some things you might hear in your environment might be the hum of your computer, might be some traffic outside, might be a light that's flickering. So let's go ahead and try and find 3 things we can hear. All right. Now we're going to move into 2 things you can smell. And again, this is kind of where it gets a little bit more challenging, but we're noticing subtlety. Sometimes not all of us have a great sense of smell, and so that's okay. And sometimes we're just really in a spot where it's just like, wow, there's just really no smell here. And that might be interesting to observe in and of itself, the absence of smell. But otherwise, we're going to try maybe a little bit more directly to smell something, and smell 2 things if possible. Right now I have an air conditioner going, and I can smell how the air is a little bit different when it goes through that machine. And last but not least, We'll try and find one thing that we can taste. So again, this might be a little bit more challenging, but it's possible, especially if we move our tongue around in our mouth a little bit. We might taste some coffee or some energy drink, uh, or something that we had earlier, like tea. You might also have a remnant of breakfast, lunch, or dinner that's still there. And if all else fails, you might even just taste your saliva and see the subtleties of that taste. All right. One thing that I like to do when I finish these activities is, since I've been sitting for a second, I like to do a little bit of a stretch. Ooh, I heard a popping. That was a nice freebie. Um, but I hope that you enjoyed this activity, and I hope that you have a new tool, if you liked it, around how you can maybe center in the present, but also maybe just distract yourself from the present, and give yourself and your brain that time to heal. All right. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. If you have any questions, you can email me at victorcounseling@outlook.com. Bye bye.